All right. Well, shalom to everybody that'll come by and spend a little bit of time with us. I hope you guys are blessed. I hope that you are feeling your eternalness is starting to grow up and peace is starting to overwhelm you. We have truly made some amazing strides, and as with everything, there's always struggles that go with things, and so I have a desire to first off try to bring some truth to people who've never maybe been given the opportunity to learn truth. Maybe they know lots of their truths, which were what religion they were brought up in, or maybe no religion. But it certainly is wonderful when we can recognize that we were created and that we have not somehow fallen to pieces, and because somebody ate an unknown fruit in some unknown place that's mystical and hidden from the world, that because of that all of us are drudging through slavery with a curse on our head. And for many of you, you are probably, if you will be honest with yourself, you may very well be in that place still. It's really sad and disheartening when we find out that these things are true. Maybe more so if we find out that it was actually done intentionally. And but on the other side, there's also a positive side, because without the negative, we could never value the positive. And so I think that we have much to value the positive. We have much to wake up in the morning and to be thankful for. We have much proof that the Creator exists, that, we're not, in fact, to be quite honest with you, I hunger and I seek Him, I think, in many ways more, because I'm no longer His enemy, this broken human who can't find it inside of myself to do right. We know that this isn't a new concept because the Apostle Paul talks about that. He says, no matter what I try to do, I still come out feeling like a wretch. Maybe you can relate to that. I certainly can, and I've watched a lot of people who had 20 years and still could not find it inside of themselves to do what's right. So I'm very thankful that the Father continues to be faithful. He continues to be long-suffering. He continues to be patient. He continues to be kind. He continues to prove that God is love and there is no darkness in Him. When are we going to accept that? That He is love and there is no darkness in Him. So I hope that we've begun a journey, and I hope maybe we've even, that we have left the port, if you would. This cruise ship of learning who the Creator is and how we relate to Him and how we're interrelated to Him. It involves every area of our life. It involves our peace. It involves our emotions. As I shared with you guys the other day, we were actually created to be in control of our emotions and in control of our minds, not them being in control of us. And most of us societally have been trained for our emotions and our mind to rule us instead of our spirit. So the greatest thing about us is that we're all spirit, we're all light, we're all divine, and with the exception of this human flesh body, which gets old and dies and falls away, and we just continue on. So I don't know about you, friend, that's good news to me. And I'm glad that I don't have to wake up in the morning and be scared to death that today's the day I'm going to get squashed like a bug. If today is the day I die, I'm glad. I get to be free from this human body. My journey, my experience of being in humanity, this trip is over with, and we're on to better and greater things. And all of the promises that I've seen that they had to make in Christianity to make people believe it and to follow it are very, very strong mind control techniques that they're using. And so I hope that if you are in that situation, and if you have been most of your life, which many people that I know have been, I hope that you will allow yourself the freedom to come out of that. So what we're going to do tonight, and I'm going to continue to do this for however long I feel that it's necessary. First off, most of us were never brought up in a place, a positive environment. There's lots of negatives in the lives that we grew up in, but not lots of positives. And so we're going to continue, and I'm hoping to do this as a manner. Of course, obviously, it all has to do with how you apply it. But I at least want to give you the opportunity, if it hasn't began to hit your mind, so that you begin to think, and then you begin to crave time to get away and be quiet, and close your eyes and just clear your mind and think on the Father and think on all the blessings He's given us, and find gratefulness in your heart and open dialogue with Him there. Well, then hopefully I can help you and encourage you that you let those things soak into you, so that you do begin to have that desire. It's really extremely important, and yet it's so crazy how many places I see things that tell me that there were biblical people who it's hidden. It was never told to us. Oh, well, Yeshua, who was a Buddhist who meditated for 6 hours a day every day, came back to Palestine, and he just forgot all of that. I'm sorrowful, friend, that's not likely. So there were many occasions where he found himself pushing off out in a boat, or climbing up a mountain, or disappearing for 2 days. And of course, now I totally know exactly what he was doing. He needed to refresh, he needed to re-energize, he needed to get rid of some negativity. Maybe some of you can encounter, and you can equate your life in pieces of your life. One teaching that I intend to do has to do with what we might call spirit drainers. And just as we are truth seekers, there are spirit drainers. There are people who will drain your energy. Spiritual presence will drain your energy. The purpose of the not so kind spirits for terrorizing people is because they gain their strength from fear, and so they terrorize you, cause you fear, you're spiritually weakened, and they grow stronger. Well, I say, my personal self, enough is enough. I'm ready to begin to hang on to my energy and raise my frequencies and raise my energy level, so that I can walk through life in peace and knowing that everything is okay. The universe is not going to leave us, friends. As I said before, if you leave your human body tonight, the sun's going to come up in the morning. If it's just not going to have a major effect on anything on this earth. And so, how wonderful it will be when we all get to leave this body and go back and experience some rest and whatever the next leg of the journey is. Maybe for you, you need to work on some things still, and so you make a contract with the divine again to come back and spend another session here. All of this stuff is known in the Hebrew world, and there's so many pieces that are starting to manifest themselves with crystals and healing crystals, and you find that stuff all in the Bible, but we're told by Christianity it's horrible and it's going to send us to hell. And so there truly is a lot of of clutter that we need to unclutter, and the beauty of this is that if you're willing to do the work to do so, then you can. You can unclutter your life. You can take those things that have no value and you can sweep them out of your life, and you can open yourself up, even as the word the Father shared on Saturday, about, you being free. Some of you may have seen one thing, maybe some of you saw another, maybe some of you closed your eyes and you couldn't deal with it for 2 seconds and your mind started going a million different places. Everybody, depending on where they're at, has all kinds of things. I know that people that don't want to change seldom see much benefit from spiritual things. So if you're really struggling about change, and I'm not talking about you don't understand all that's going on. There's no human alive that does. We're just in different places. But on the other side, if your heart is against change, then there's nothing positive that's going to be given to you that's going to help you. You're just going to throw it in the trash can and end up inevitably going right back to where you were anyways, which is why the proverb in the Bible tells us that it returns to that which it was before. And so I'll leave that at that. So we're going to take a few minutes here. This purpose of this, as I've already stated, is to hopefully help instill in you. If you're not doing it yourself, then this is a time we're not going to take but a couple of minutes. And so I want to say the short 2-3 minute meditations are just as important as the 15 or 20 minute meditations. And if you're not, you should be. You should go into your bedroom and you should shut everything out and maybe get some crystals, depending on what it is, the healing that you need, and maybe you should hold on to those. They're very powerful. Certainly the Hebrew priests knew that. And so it's not like these things aren't known to have power. We've just been told that that's taboo for us, while the Hebraic priests continued to use crystals. Makes no sense to me. But Christianity's done a lot of things that don't make sense to me. So we're going to take a few minutes. If you don't have something to focus on, it is always okay. It's always a very good place to be, always a place of thankfulness. If you have nothing else to meditate on, meditating on being grateful for all that He has done for you, you could meditate on that for the rest of your life and never explore all of it. And I don't know about you, but the more that I meditate on being grateful and the more I just begin to roll over all the circumstances in my life that have brought me to this place, I find myself being extremely moved in my spirit realm. And of course, that's the whole purpose for meditation. It's a spiritual exercise. And it's really hard for us. Many people have problems meditating. And one thing that has been brought to the forefront, that if you're having problems meditating and focusing, it's probably because you haven't yet made peace with yourself. When people haven't made peace with themselves, they can't close their eyes, because it's very akin to looking yourself in the face, because your mind is going to expose those things back to you. And of course, God forbid that we should do that if we don't have a desire to change. And so we are spirit, we are force, we are energy, we are divine, and that's never going to change. The only thing that changes is our perception of ourself. And so if you have low self-esteem, there's a lot of benefit that comes out of this. And so we're going to take the time to do that and move off into that for just a couple of minutes. And, if you have no other words, gratefulness is very good to be. Maybe you could clear your mind and meditate and prepare yourself for the scriptures through just being free. Tonight, positive affirmations are really good. I am going to clear my mind so that I might hear new things that can be put in me. That is very freeing. I talked to somebody and they told me I didn't really see anything, but it was as if a cool breeze blew across me. And I thought, what is more spiritual than the breath, the ruach, the wind of God? Do you think it's accidental or insignificant that the wind should blow across someone while they're moving into meditation? I say you take that and you think on that every day for the next 20 years would be really cool. That the Father chose to blow his breath across you. It really is a huge blessing, and because we don't fully know this, we're not practiced at it, we haven't been living this way, we haven't been around people who taught us from our youth that instead of spending time on the computer, maybe we should go spend time in quiet and in silence, or maybe instead of doing something else, maybe we should go to the woods and meditate, you know. And so it certainly is a difference. For some of you, that may be the most horrible thing you could imagine. And if it is, then I don't know what to do for you. But on the other side, for all the others that's not the case, that are willing to follow and listen to what the Spirit is trying to say to us, then there's absolutely no doubt, according to the Bible, that you will receive a blessing for it. So let's raise our vibrational frequencies, and let's increase our energy by taking just a couple of minutes together. Clear your mind, be peaceful, and think on such things. Let's do it. How about it? Start with breathing. Just in, release, in, release. Are you free today? Are you healing, peace, like a river flows. How wonderful and amazing. I think that we have to view and we have to recognize how really loved that we really are. I hope that that will become the cry of your heart even more as we go along, that you'll begin to recognize that the Creator, unfortunately, the Creator never created any sin in mankind. We are now finding out in some documents that the original story of Gan Eden, which actually predates the Hebrew Gan Eden, that there was no original sin that went on. And I was quite shocked when I heard that, because that is the very thing that leads all of us to a belief, and maybe you're here, but that has led us to a belief that we must have forgiveness for our human failures. In fact, it's just not so. He loves us, and we can certainly separate ourselves in many ways from the power and from the flow. When we understand that this is an energy that we can open ourselves up so that his energy flows through us. When you begin to understand that, you may be more than ever before, because I came out of the Pentecostal church where fake spiritualism was displayed by people babbling in tongue and dancing like chickens, and we thought that was spiritual. And the Father is nothing like that. That's why all those years ago, when he was about to give me a church, I was a novice by most people's standards, I guess, and he was about to give me this church congregation and told me 6 months before that they were mine, but I had to go through many things to arrive at that place. So sometimes he speaks to us, and when he's speaking, it's about what is to come, and you have to trust him and you have to believe, and those things are two features that I really am going to be harping on as I develop this picture for those of you who may not know to look at about what true prayer is, but also what it's not. And part of true prayer, friends, is tied right up in the middle of meditation. Why did Yeshua go up into a mountain by himself and sit on a rock, most probably with his crossed legs? And why does it say that he prayed to the Father? Because that's the way that you pray. And we know nothing of that. We think that you walk around and you say, oh, God, give me some things, thanks. And that's about the extent of most people's spirituality. And so there's an infinite, it's not a cut on, cut off thing. This is who you have to be, who you are. And I guess there's unlimited opportunities for you to come back if you don't get it right this time, but I want to do all I can do to help you try to get it right. So if you come back, at least you come back for a different reason. So I don't want to have to come back for the same reason again. I'd like to fulfill my place, which I will. I fully am convinced that he's guiding me every day, every step, and I hope that you will too. So we're going to finish up tonight. Hopefully, if I get there, I may not get there. Depends on how the Spirit moves me. But I want to go back because I believe that with all of us being what you might call, those that have been with me anyways are at the beginner stage. And there's going to be lots of potholes to encounter, lots of things that are required of you that weren't required of you your whole life. You didn't know. I certainly never heard one Christian pastor ever talk about meditating. In fact, I was told that stuff was satanic. And how horribly, horribly wrong they've done humanity for their lives. So what I wanted to do is, after talking to some, I want to just kind of maybe explore some of these things that are going on. We kind of have a split and a division, and I know it did touch some of you because you told me it did. But I just want to try to look a little deeper into some of these concepts about our vibrational period. And I don't necessarily want to be extensive unless that's where it ends up drawing me. But I do want us to stop and take one of these individual things and look at it on the negative end, what depletes our energy, what lowers our vibrations, what causes bad things to come to us. Because all of these things are affecting every area of your life. There is not one area of your life that your thought processes are either cursing or blessing. And unfortunately, you are the common denominator. And so I shared with you that shame is the beginning. Well, as I've looked at this, I've begun to see that I understand the hierarchy, but I'm noticing another pattern, and maybe you have this pattern and you've recognized it already for yourself. Many of these vibrational frequencies, emotional vibrations, so if it's emotional, then that's something that we are actually supposed to learn to control. It's not supposed to be over us. We, our spirit, our soul, is supposed to be over it. That is to say, I don't have a desire to get rid of my emotion. What I have a desire to do is to control them, so when they go berserk on me, I stop them. And so that has everything to do with discipline. Many of you do these things in your mind, and you get mad at somebody and you go off in a tangent. And it doesn't really matter whether you exhibit that on the outward effect or whether you keep that inside. Some of you think that you're really strong because you get really mad at things and you say all kinds of things, but you control yourself that they don't get out. I think it would be better if you would let them out. Because by letting them out, at least you would resist, and this gets into some of Carl Jung's teaching in psychology and psychiatry about our dark side. And so there are some very strong principles that if you don't acknowledge the dark that's in you, it will kill you. And most of you have been hiding the truth from yourself for so long, you may not even be able to deal with it. It makes you strong, right? Because I was real mad at him, but I didn't say anything. No, it didn't make you strong. In fact, what it did is it began to putrefy inside of you, and now you're down the road and your life sucks and bad things start happening, and you wonder why is everything going wrong? There's really a lot more truth to all of this than maybe some of you have recognized. It's exactly how we live all the time. So the first one I wanted to look at was to look at shame. How might shame lower our frequencies so that we begin to use shame as a negative emotional force to begin to bring more things that cause shame into our life? And if you would take that for a second and hold on to it, maybe if you are a person who has a shame problem, maybe you've lived most of your life ashamed of who you are. Maybe you know that inside of you there's more, but you just can't find it in yourself to do that. And so because of that, you're shameful. Maybe your parents shamed you. Maybe you had people in school that shamed you. And you got under that negativity, and it's been affecting your life ever since. Because I promise you, whatever frequency that you put out there, there is a opposite frequency. And when I say opposite, I mean coming from an opposite person back towards you, just as the signal that you're sending out. So it is absolutely like a radio. A signal gets sent out, and a signal gets received, and a signal gets received, and a signal gets sent out. And what happens is we end up finding ourselves hooking up with all the people who can give us everything we need to fortify our emotional vibration, degradation, and they just seem to naturally find you. Could it be possible that birds of a feather flocking together are the sending and the receiving of negative vibrational forces? Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. That's why people who have the same vibration frequency, because I assure you, when you find somebody who's functioning in reasoning and love, they're not going to want to be around somebody walking in shame. They'll pick it up, they'll recognize it as negative, and they will go, I'll help you if I can, but I'm not going to live there. And neither should we allow ourselves to. So most of what this is for maybe for some, and for others not so, but maybe for the first time in your life, maybe we need to begin to deal with our emotions, and we need to make them line up instead of just accepting them, and because of that, then we end up damaging ourselves. And shame is a very powerful one that gets used. We get shamed on many levels. I think back about raising my kids, the different ways that parents speak to their kids that shame them so they can get them to do something. It starts, probably at our earliest memories are tied in some ways to shame. And so shame is the lowest frequency. It's very negative. Your emotions go in the trash can. You begin to draw bad things, and then because bad things came, you deserve it, and so you lower your frequency even more, and because of that, you have even less protection, and now you're weaker, and now when it comes, and then you put the other aspect of the spiritual forces, which also feed off of low frequency. So when you see these things on television and these people, you always know that person that is encountering a spirit force negatively, they are in a negative place. And it absolutely is the truth that whatever frequency we are putting out, that's what we're going to encounter. And so hopefully you'll take the time, because all of this is introspective. This is all about you. This is no longer about your keeping some Christian rules. This journey is about you. The Creator wants you to be healthy. He wants you to be wise. I believe He wants you to be wealthy. And we can't accomplish those tasks if we are emotionally devastated. And so, if that is you, and you'll know, you should know, it should be speaking to you. You probably knew it the first time that I said it on Saturday. And then the positive side to that, since we're kind of at the bottoms working up, would be neutrality. So let's look at the difference. If I am functioning and living a life in shame, and I'm drawing shame to myself, would you think that if I even move to the place which is really the lowest of the positive, which we could just call neutrality, if I was putting out no bad vibes, even if I wasn't putting out good vibes, the lack of bad vibes would be a massive improvement, would it not? You go through the day and nothing really great happened, but nothing really horrible happened, and you miss the person who usually makes you feel ashamed of yourself. Something happened and karma kicked in, and all of a sudden they got distracted, and you walked past them and they didn't talk to you. And so I think you should be able to see then that there's a very, very simple metaphoric picture of how that might work. And unfortunately, all of the things that I've been sharing with you guys about separation, those are all spiritual attributes of people who are walking in victory. I promise you, if you can move yourself to a positive plane, you won't want to be around negative people anymore. And the more that you wash, purge, and clean, the less you will be desirous to be around those people. And so a place of neutrality then would be very, very, very comforting and very beneficial, as opposed to a place where you're walking around beat up in shame because you failed, you're not good enough, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too white, you're too black. It doesn't, I mean, everything could be used and turned to something that will shame us. To be quite honest with you, as much as I'm enamored by the Amish people, I have no clue how those people are function like they do, to be quite honest with you, which is, I guess, why a lot of them are leaving the Amish, is because they're tired of those low vibrations of being shamed constantly. And so hopefully that's something that will inevitably come alive in them as well. So we have this place of neutrality then. It's the beginning of the release. I believe being neutral is the beginning of the release of negativity and the beginning of the receiving of positivity. And so those two are really both the bottom rungs of the two specters, but certainly an infinitely more desirable place is to be in a place of neutrality than it is to be walking in a place of shame. And so then we have guilt. You didn't do enough, or you didn't do it right, or you didn't do it when you should, or you didn't. Well, there is a fix for guilt, you know. The fix for guilt is called mindfulness, because guilt typically comes out of mindlessness. Typically we are guilty because we failed. What is the fix for being guilty because you failed? Quit failing. Which brings in the whole course of mindfulness. We should ask ourselves the question, well, why did I fail? If I failed, I'm willing to accept that, but why did I fail? And then I can turn this negative fail, this negative guilt, I can turn it into a positive, because as I begin to look at it, then I can find out how to keep it from happening again. But you have to desire to be mindful instead of being mindless. It's everything, friends. I'm telling you, the world is functioning on the principles that I'm sharing with you right now. And there's a lot better teachers than me, but it's the truth nonetheless. So we have guilt, and then we know that moving into neutrality is positive, even though there may not be any quote-unquote massive gain to it. We still have gained because we pulled ourselves out of that darkness. And so then, pitted against guilt, if you would use those terms, then you would come to the next phase, which would be called willingness. Now, willingness is very definitely a positive emotional vibration, but willingness doesn't say that you did it. It just simply means that you come to a place spiritually where you realize that you need to. And for many, that's a huge revelation. For many people that will hear and learn all of this that's going on all over the world of which I'm speaking, many people will become willing but have no knowledge, they have no wisdom, they have no understanding, they don't really know what to do, but they're willing if somebody will love them, if somebody will show them, if somebody will lead them, then they're willing to follow. The other people that are back in guilt and shame and want to stay there are the ones who go, well, I'm not listening to that guy anymore because I ain't doing all that stuff he talks about. Okay. I promise you, you're not hurting me. If you're okay with living in that nonsense, live in it. But I'm not interested. I'm not staying there for anybody. And so then the counteraction to guilt, which is something that we typically, not always, because people will guilt trip you, but that's usually because of a failing also. And so then we have this willingness factor that we're neutral, so we weren't really gaining any positive, but we weren't putting out any negative. And now we move into willingness and we begin to gain some positive. So you say, well, I don't know all the answers. Well, good. None of us do. So let's go on. Let's continue the journey. Stay willing. And all of us need to hit this stage. And then when we hit it, we need to stay there because there's a lot for us to learn. We're behind the curve, if you would, compared to people. Compared to Yeshua, that's why he spoke over people, because they didn't understand all that he was really doing. And so we have this state of willingness, and in the state of willingness, just being willing. I want to learn how to meditate. I want to find out what the spirit realm is. The willingness and then the action to begin that puts you in a place of beginning to draw positive energies. All of a sudden, now, the guy who might have said something or banged you with the cart at the grocery store, now all of a sudden, he stops himself and he says, excuse me, can I let you by? And you begin to recognize, hey, there's something in the cosmos changing about me. I was amazed that when I began to watch these principles actually function, that all of a sudden people who I used to look at and view as probably wanted to do harm to me, all of a sudden they began to be nice to me. It was like crazy. I'm like, I've been living hating everybody my whole life, and all of a sudden people are being nice? Where did that come from? It's that quick, friends. This stuff is big. And because we don't understand, we don't understand what it is for things to work to our benefit. But we have to learn how to trust and believe that the universe, the cosmos, the Father has our best interest at heart. The universe wants us to be successful while we're here. We have a false conception of that. We don't have that picture in our minds. That this is infinitely bigger than this pathetic little human journey we're on, folks. You ain't going to be here for long, but you're going to be somewhere for a long time. And it ain't going to be in a human body. And that Creator Father, I see more of Paul's mysticism when Paul says, neither height nor depth nor breadth nor width can separate you from the love of God. My goodness, what an amazing statement. You mean that guy was telling me mystical, esoteric statements because he was a mystical, esoteric believer and he knew these things? Wow. So think about if you were willing for just a split second to believe God to the umpteenth that really is. You don't have sin. He doesn't look at you in that manner. When he looks at you through the eyes of love. He sees something beautiful because he can see what we can't see. And so all of a sudden, we begin to get our vibrations to raise. And I know maybe some of you don't know anything about chakras, but your energy centers inside of your body, they begin to change. They begin to get stronger. And the stronger you get, and the more your chakra gets aligned, the more you become strong. The less you become weak, the more peace you have. And so we must first get ourselves to a place of neutrality and get rid of all of these other things. So we have shame and guilt, and now we have apathy. And the problem is that apathy is kind of the exact opposite of willingness. Oh, maybe I should. It's like the guy told me one time. He said, okay, Brother Turner, I'll keep that in mind. Maybe someday I'll need that. And I just shook my head. It's like, oh, whatever. Maybe someday you'll need that. So apathy then stops the flow of the Creator. Yes, it's a little better than walking around in shame, but one of the things as I've examined this that I'm finding out is all of these negative traits, most of the time, it's not like you just have the good trait. but it's just not like the good traits are just that you have only one of them. Because what I find is the mass majority of people, friend, who are functioning in a negative emotional vibration, almost every one of them start at pride and go backwards. So that is to say, if I'm walking around in shame, sending out, then I also get to receive guilt, and I find myself being apathetic, and then I get sad because I'm failing, and I know I'm failing, but I'm just too tired and don't care enough to change it. And so then I fall into grief, and then I move from grief because now I know I'm failing and I'm sad about it. And so then I fall into fear. Well, if I can't do anything to stop this, can I ever be successful at anything? And so then fear comes, and then we have a desire to do what's right, but then anger kicks in because once again, we're not getting any results. And so part of what I'm seeing is that really if we would stop for long enough and be honest with ourselves, we probably could see that we're not just functioning in one only. That if you're functioning in the lower end of the vibrational frequencies, you all are probably functioning at least more and less. You're functioning in all of them. You also fight with fear. You also fight with shame. You also fight with anger. You also fight with... And I would say if that's true, then we probably get that same picture as we increase our vibrational frequencies. So the fact that I'm no longer negative, which is neutrality, I've now become willing to do whatever I need to do, so I'm no longer apathetic. So I'm willing to, and then I accept what I have to do. So that is to say, instead of saying, oh God, thank you for the grass is good today, and I'm so glad, could you help us have this good service so everybody does everything I say? We begin to accept things that are not always what we may want to do. For some of you, it might be a really weird thing for somebody to ask you to sit with your eyes closed for 3 minutes and converse with your Creator, the Divine. I would think that's something that spiritual people would quite delight in doing. I'm seeing that it's becoming something more and more that I want to do, not less. I find a lot of peace when I get up. Maybe I cried the other day. I was meditating, and I looked up, and the Father said, feel my rain, and it was like I felt raindrops. It's the first experience like this meditating that I've had. But I was standing out like this, and I was looking up, and it was like raindrops began to hit me in the face. And I told Marianne, I began to dance in my vision, in my meditation. I began to dance around. By the time it was over with and I opened my eyes, I had tears covering my face. It had been just a spiritual washing. And so if you didn't experience that the other day and you didn't experience it today, that's not surprising. But I will tell you, if you will continue on and if you will meditate with purpose, meditation is the brother to prayer. And so we move from apathy into grief. Why are we sad? How many kids do you know today, friends? They say that suicide is up. Suicide is an indication of usually depression. And depression, a lot of times, is a sign of grief. People get grieved. They get sad. What happened? They get depressed. So you then have grief that comes along, and it's a very negative force, and you get into it, and you get the pity party. You know, the pity party's the brother to grief, friends. And so you get the pity party, and then all of a sudden now all you can do is think bad things about everybody, because it's everybody's fault, not yours. And so grief brings us to that place. And on the other end of the spectrum, then we have reason. I have a reason now. I kind of like this new me. I was talking to somebody that I love a lot the other day, and they said that on Saturday they looked and said, is that Rob Turner? I thought, what a wonderful testimony. What a wonderful testimony. Because I assure you, it's much more enjoyable this than the fact that we're all breaking the rules. I don't know if it'll make you be a better person, but I sure believe it makes me be a better person. And so we then have to bring reason into it. We're willing to do something, now we have to reason, or we have to figure out what we're going to do. What should you do? Instead of whatever you want to do, that you might normally do, that you might have done your whole life, now you have to reason that and ask yourself, is this benefiting me? Is this going to enlighten me? Is this going to strengthen me? Or is this going to lower my vibration? Some of you have friends and family members and loved ones and unfortunately maybe even spouses that just going around them lowers your vibrational because you've lived in guilt, or you've lived in shame, or you lived in apathy, or you lived and you hear all of those things. Well, you're not good enough, and I asked him to do it, but he didn't do it, or I thought she was going to go, and you just get into this whole dynamic of relationship, and it ends up killing both of you. You live unhappy lives, and you do nothing but draw negative energy in to destroy the other one. And so that puts you in a unique situation, even more so if the other one isn't interested in making a change in their life. And so my hat off to anybody who may be in that situation and you live with a negative partner, because they're going to keep sowing negativity until they decide to change. And so unfortunately that's your problem to deal with, not mine. So, and then of course we come into fear. And what overcomes fear? Fear is what? Fear is, as I've taught you in the past, false evidence that appears real. Most fears that we have never manifest. How many of you have ever gotten a letter from the IRS and the first thing that happens is fear goes through you? I guarantee you, I've been around a lot of people that got letters from IRS and it don't ever make you a positive. It's like, what did I do wrong? Instantaneous. So what did they do? The sheer fear creates what? It creates guilt. You're guilty and you haven't done anything. And so we have to control our minds, or we'll let ourselves get negative, and then we open the letter and go, oh, they made a mistake and they're sending me $500 back. Now all of a sudden it's like, good, but you sowed those seeds out and they're going to reverberate back. So as we learn to control our minds and as we learn to control our emotions, we can minimize. So the bottom line of all of this is that we're never going to get rid of our humanity, but what we do have an option to learn is, how do we minimize the negative forces that come against me? Can you stop negative people from being negative? Not usually. If they're a close friend, maybe you can explain to them what they're doing, but you don't have power over that. So then the question comes back to, is it about them really, or is it really about they can be negative, and because I'm not walking in that lane anymore, I have now the ability to control my emotions so that I don't begin to send out those negative vibes again. And I hope you'll see that that's a real time that every one of us deal with. But I'm going to tell you right now, as you begin to bring these positive emotional vibrations out, you're going to begin to even see those people that are negative all the time. They're not going to know what to do. They don't understand you. Used to, when I would say that, you would fly off the handle, get mad, be full of anger, be fearful about what's going to happen, and it just fed me. And now they do it, and you look at them and smile and go, I love you. And it totally destroys them. We were created, friend, divine, and we were created to be successful. Thank you to Christianity for telling us that we were horrible, worthless things that ate an apple 5,000 years ago, and because of that, God hates you. Sorry, I didn't eat the apple. And so we begin to take control of fear, and we do that with love. You want to know how to win every case that you encounter? With love. When people are mean to you, love them. When people slap you, turn the other cheek. See, what we haven't understood, although I've been alluding to this even before I knew what I was saying, we don't understand this Yeshua thing. We keep getting hung up over here in this fake Christian concocted Jesus, and we don't understand this Yeshua thing. He meant exactly what he said. If you want to know how to keep your vibrations high, you do it through love, and you love even those people that don't love you. Because there is no battle that they can have against you and win if you're functioning in love. Love covers how much? A multitude of sin. So for any of you who've been with me for a while and thought I was throwing the Bible away, honey, you're going to get to see what the Bible's really all about. And it's about action, not about going to a church. So we have fear, and we counteract that with love. Of course, when we do that, then we have desire, which can be good. Desire, the Creator will give us the desires of our heart. So desire in and of itself isn't bad, but desire for the wrong things is just as strong a negative force. A junkie has a desire, which isn't bad, unless you make it bad, but a junkie has a desire for another fix. And because they have a desire towards something that's negative, then they do bad things. Why? Because they're broadcasting that, and so they draw bad things like going to jail because they broke in somebody's house and stole their TV and pawned it. You see how that works? All of these things are tied brother and sister with karma, and they're all functioning, friend. You don't get to stop it. You don't get to say, I'm being negative right now, but don't charge me for that. It make no difference what you say. Your frequencies are low. You're being drained by whatever force probably that's putting pressure on you, and you're drawing that stuff to yourself. Stop it. You reap what you sow. That's exactly right. All of those things are all saying these metaphysical things, friend. For those of you who haven't, because I have shared with some and pointed you in some directions towards the fifth kind is a very good teaching resource if you would like to learn some truths that have been hidden from us, that were done intentionally in translations and by scholars who are world renowned. And we just received our copy of the Naked Bible, which is the first literal translation, and it corrects some most profound Hebrew words that never meant what Christianity and even Judaism told us those words meant. And so the whole Bible is being rewritten right in front of us, and none of it is a document that we were told it was. So you then have to take that and you have to view that in a positive light. Is it better to keep believing a lie, or is it better to know the truth? You have to ask yourself that. Many people, ignorance is bliss. I can't speak to those people. I have no spiritual help for people who ignorance is bliss. I'm too much of a doer. When I see it, I'm not going to hide from it. I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to go on, and I'm going to be blessed by it no matter who else is. But ignorance is bliss people go, okay, well, I'm that, but I'm going to stay that. I'm not one of those. I want to change. I need to change. I want to change. And so we move out of this desire into joy. When we move into joy, from love into joy, because love brings joy, there again, the metaphoric picture, what? Hope, love, and all of those things, man, that's all metaphysical language. That's mystical, esoteric language that we knew nothing about because we don't know anything about anything. Right? We thought God, who was a myth, was real. Then to only find that there's two gods in the Bible, and they're fighting each other. Help us. That's what I'm saying. We can't do this by ourselves. So, but when we begin to move by love, then we can finally get to the place where we actually find some joy. Even when bad things happen, our frequencies don't get lowered. And so I hope to seed in every single one of you, if you don't have it already, the desire to quit living in the depressive, discouraging, downtrodden state of low frequency and to move in to the happy, peaceful place of high frequency. And it is your choice. And so we then, because of love, then we move into joy. And all of a sudden now, life really is good. Now it's not just, oh, well, I'm too blessed to be stressed. Now you really are blessed. And you also find that there's some things that come along with this love and peace and joy. You begin to become humble because you recognize all your life you tried to be this and you never could. And all of a sudden now you find out that these weird things that everybody tells you is witchcraft are causing you to have peace that you've never had before. Wow. I had people within 2 weeks telling me that they had already begun to experience more peace than they had had their whole life, friends. That's how powerful what I'm sharing with you guys is. And it's our choice. We have the power to do it if we choose to. That's good news. That is the gospel. You can be victorious. You can win. You don't have to live a life in poverty. And then, of course, the joy makes us happy. And because we're happy, we also then can move to the higher level, which is we move into peace. And then we look around and if you ever get to the level, and you will, if you ever get to the level that you find peace, you'll very quickly recognize what it is not to have peace. I think for many people, the hardest journey is getting them there once. And once they get there, they'll fight you till the end of the rest of their life trying to stay there because it's such a wonderful place. Doesn't mean everything's perfect in life. But I can be in peace even if things aren't perfect. Do any of you remember that the scripture constantly talks about peace? Peace like a river flows. Can I tell you what the meaning of that is that you never knew and your preacher didn't know either? Peace like a river flows is talking about the frequency of peace. And it flows. Wow. Hair standing up on my head, folks. This is the truth I've been looking for my whole life. How do I be a better me? And so then we have peace, and of course, peace allows us the freedom to breathe and to learn and to come into enlightenment. Do you realize that every one of us can be what is considered what's called to be ascended? That power lies inside of every human that's ever been on this earth? I want you to know, once again, because I haven't done away with the New Testament or the Old Testament, but I will root out the false. And this right here is yet again, as I've been saying, is another esoteric. I begin to watch changes in my life the first time that I read this to y'all. But what it is it's a 3-line summation of everything I just said to you. But you got to get to that point before you begin to see the results. You got to get to the point that the divine in me begins to be unleashed. And I'm going to tell you right now, when we ever find out truly in us and truly give ourselves to it, we will begin to see these signs and greater will you do. He wasn't talking to Christians when he said that, friends. He was talking to enlightened people. The divine that motivated Yeshua is the same divine that lives inside of me. He wasn't any better than me. He wasn't any better than Dave. He wasn't any more powerful than you, but he had done the work to allow the divine to flow into him like a river. And because it flowed into him, then he could also release it to flow away from him, which is the purpose we were created, is to be a bearer and a sharer of light. And so, wow, I was going to do 15 minutes, huh, Mariana? I guess that's how that goes, huh? Well, I hope you guys got blessed. I hope you'll take some of these things and think about them. They're so deep, and many times, in many ways, we're so used to just putting our minds on idle. We get off work and we want to go collapse. I get that. I totally understand that. But on the other side, in some ways, that's the worst thing that you can do. We have to fight the fight. And it's the fight of faith. It's the fight of believing that the divine is in me, and the divine does have my best, does want me to be wonderful, and does want me to be successful, and is guiding my steps. We have guides all around us. Spirit guides that have been with us since before we were born. And we know nothing about them. Paul tells us, be careful because you might be entertaining angels, and then we're told our whole life, stay away from that crap because it's evil. What? No wonder we're as messed up as we are. Everybody's closed off all the vents to the Spirit in their life. And we got to dig those wells, like Abraham said. They had to go back and dig the wells of Abraham. People came along and filled those wells he dug up with rocks, and his son couldn't even drink his animals. They had to go dig them. We got to dig back the wells of the divine that exist inside of us. And when we do, we begin to drink cool, fresh water, and all of a sudden, we're not bad people anymore, and I'm not going to go to hell, and I don't have to worry about it because I'm full of sin. No, I did 5 things, and all 5 of them separated me from my Father, and I hated it. So I don't do those anymore. Did nobody have to make me? I wanted to. And until that's where it comes out of our hearts, it's meaningless anyway. Which is why Christianity doesn't work. As long as you can keep the rules, you can believe you're good. But I haven't met anybody that is a pastor for 30 years. I haven't met anybody who kept the rules all the time. Whether that be in word or deed or lack of thought. But we don't want to talk about those things. We kept the rules. Well, I hope you've been blessed infinitely more than you even recognize. And I hope that you'll go along through the rest of this week and work these principles. How long would it take for you to spend 5 minutes in the morning before you're out of the bed, you open your eyes and you close your eyes and you say, and you begin to breathe, and you breathe, and breathing, it has to do with everything, and you begin to breathe, and all of a sudden you just slip off for 5 minutes and begin to be thankful for what a wonderful day that you're going to have, and begin to, maybe you invite your guardian angels to be a part of your day, to watch over. Please help me. I have a business meeting I need to go into. Help me be able to see what I need to see. You're speaking into your life when you do those things versus waking up, being in fear, and guess what happens? The very thing you feared have come upon you. You know that is, yet again, another place in the Old Testament where a very profound, esoteric, mystical teaching came out of the mouth of Job. Whatever you fear is what will happen to you. Friends, I just spent an hour talking about emotional frequencies, and Job talked about it 4,000 years ago. Whatever you fear, because fear is a frequency and a radio signal sender, and there's a receiver that somebody else has that receives fear. And not only that, there are demonic forces that love your fear. Could they get some more, please? Is anybody hearing me tonight? Guys, isn't it time? Haven't you suffered long enough? Haven't you been unhappy long enough? Isn't it time that we loved ourselves enough to say, I'm just tired of being unhappy all the time? I hope there's other people out there listening that will grab a hold of some of this stuff and will begin to put it in their life, because if you do, it will change your life. There's no question in my mind that that's true. I only know what I've seen, but I also know that what I've seen, I'm not that much different than any of you guys. And if I saw it, then you could see it. And so I hope you'll continue on the journey with me. Several of you I've talked to have said you absolutely believe that this is a time. I believe it's a very, very amazing time for humanity, what's going on the earth right now. And it's not just happening in Missouri, friends. This message is all over the world, and it's popping up spontaneously. The Creator, the Divine, has been leading me to get here for a long time. It took 30 years to get me here. But I'll tell you what, if it had took 40 years, getting here was the thing. So be encouraged. If you feel like that everything you've ever learned and known is being wasted because you're finding out now what the truth about the Bible really was, it's not wasted. I promise you, those principles will come alive just like you've seen tonight. How many verses have I quoted? I'm going to have to start having somebody count every service. How many verses did I quote? I'm quoting almost as much Bible as I ever have. Why? Because the delusion is being removed about what the truth of spirituality is. And on that note, I hope you'll be blessed. I hope you will experience all that the Divine has for you, your divine Creator that lives in you. He's with you every day, all day long, because you are divine. Shalom to each and every one of you. I hope that we see you back. We'll be back on Saturday at 2 o'clock. And we will pick up and begin to look and go forward. Much in our future for us, that we can grow and live. Any of you who desire to send me a comment, I like positive comments just as much as I deal with the negative comments, okay? When you begin to step out, people who don't want to step out begin to expose their frequency. It's all good. I promise you, I'm thankful that it is. So, once again, shalom to you guys. May you have a wonderful rest of your week. May you, as Yeshua would say, may you go in peace.